When we found ourselves in the group of other nationalities, Nigerians, Cameroonians, whatever, Ugandans, we were Zambia, and we protected Zambia, because those are the values and principles that KK had enshrined in this country. This time when I'm in the US or England or whatever, I just get so surprised when people are speaking against Zambia. There are times I say, is this the same Zambia that I live in? And that was not all, because you can say maybe Russia was a closed society. I went to live in England. It was the same. When we were, my husband was training in Edinburgh, Scotland. You got pride in meeting a Zambian. When in London, where I was studying, it was Zambia. We went to live in Germany, it was Zambia. But this time, I don't understand. And probably we should have not killed the concept of humanism, because the Zambia we see today is a Zambia that I don't know. And I'm sure even KK used to sit and reflect and say, is this the nation that I built? And for me, that's why this death is so painful, because we're at crossroads where Zambians are rising against another person just because of wanting a position. And I recall in 1991 when we had to change from the KK administration to the Chilumba administration. There were no kind of things that you see now, where somebody would even kill another human being just to get to State House. I think KK must have been reflecting, and a lot of us who were brought up in the Kenneth Kaunda principles, we sit back in our homes and we wonder what has gone wrong. So for me, as I reflect on this death, I just wished KK had lived on, and maybe it would have given a different reflection to some of our colleagues, especially in the political arena, to step back and say what we are doing is wrong. However, maybe this death will teach them a lesson, so that wherever they are, they reflect and say, what is the best way in which I'll mourn KK? What is the best way in which I'll remember KK? And I think the best is for us to live by his principles. The principles of patriotism and love for your country, the principles of peace, the principles of love, especially for others and those who are disadvantaged. But we find people just want to amass and amass and amass. KK left this country. You would never hear a story that he took this, he took that, and took that. That was KK. And I think he's a very important person, even as we bring up our children, to start getting them to emulate KK.
When I was looking at the legacy, or rather the background of KK, I thought I was, when I moved from KK, I came to your profile as well. I thought I was reading about KK as well, because I know that KK's parents, his father was a teacher. Then when I came to you as well, looking at your profile, it gave me that both your parents were teachers. Yes. And both of you again were, coming from Chinsali. Lubwa mission was, centered on the two of you, you and KK. What was all that similarity about?
What I have heard is that the missionaries that were in Chinsali and the parents of KK were obviously missionaries. They centered their activities around two things. One was health, so they built up the Lubwa Mission Hospital, and the other one was education. Right. So part of Lubwa Mission was the education sector. So most of the people that got educated ended up being teachers, because it was very fashionable to be a teacher.
Right.
Or they ended up into health provision.
Right.
And therefore, my parents ended up as teachers. But I think also they valued education. And all of them invested in the education of their children. You can say that for the Kaunda children, you can say that for the Kapwepo children, you can say that for the Mushindo, poor Mushindo children and grandchildren. You can say that about so many. So education became one of the anchors of livelihoods in Chinsali because of that influence. And I think what is also very, very important, which is not spoken about, during that time, we are told a lot of people in communities preferred male children to girl children.
Right.
And so if somebody had a son, it was celebrated. When you were a girl, you were not celebrated. In fact, people used to say, and I think it's still the same in some communities, she'll get married.
Oh, yeah.
But I think what was very clear about these parents of ours was how they protected us, the girl children.
Right.
Speaking for myself, we were 6 girls and 2 brothers. My father stood by us and ensured that he invested in our education. You can say the same about the Kapwepo children. Mr. Kapwepo made sure boys and girls, he invested in their education. You can say that again about KK's children. So I think education for them ran through their blood. And I think that is extremely important when you are doing a foundation for your children and your family. So Mr. Kaunda's parents laid that foundation for him. I can say my parents laid that foundation. And our challenge is to continue with that kind of foundation for our children and our children's children.
Right. Moving on, Professor, we know that, like you mentioned in your explanation, that KK preached unity and love in all his life. And today is normal. We've remained as the new generation, as well as we've got other leaders that are in power, others aspiring to go in power. Do you see Zambia united where we are today?
Before I answer that question, I want the Zambians to understand why His Excellency, the President of this Republic, President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, chose to take the body of KK first, not to Chinsali where he came from, but to Choma. Because if people understand that, and if people would read, a lot of things that are happening now would not be happening. The reason that body went there first was because of the Choma Declaration. Now, the Choma Declaration is a very important event in the history of Zambia. Because if you read about how the politics involved, the different parties were being formed to do different things, it was not until the Choma Declaration where the parties realized that to achieve anything, there has to be unity. It was because of the Choma Declaration that we talk about the independence of today. And you know, that saying that divided you fall, united you stand, is very, very important. And Zambians must start understanding this. Zambians must go to the documentation and read about how Zambia got independent and about the importance of unity by reading about the Choma Declaration. And I think because, one, you young people are enjoying what you are enjoying without even reflecting, maybe reading about it, analyzing, and linking it to what's happening today. Until you do that, you will always have a problem. Right. One of the examples I've given is that in 2011, when the Patriotic Front government came to power, those who were 10, today they are 20. Those who were 8, today are 18. These are the voters of tomorrow. Right. At 8 and 10, they cannot remember what Zambia looked like. So when they see all these flyover bridges, they see the Lake Mwanawasa Hospital, they think these things existed before. Okay? But these are the ones that are complaining the most. If you talk to the adults, because they've seen the changes that have taken place in this country, you can't shake them, because they have seen a transformation. And the same can be said about unity, that those of us who were there when Zambia was united, when we did things together, when we were proud to be Zambians. I could never utter a negative sentence against Zambia, regardless. I would rather find a solution to it. We had no blame game. When we met with Zambians, we never knew where anybody came from. Our tribe was Zambian. I myself shared a room for 8 years in Russia with Dr. Betty Mnalula. May her soul rest in peace. Betty Mnalula was from Western Province. And I was from, at the time, Northern Province. We were sisters. We did everything together. We came on holiday together. If I came and she chose to go anywhere, I would go and visit her mother. That was Zambia. But now we want to know whether you come from, whether you speak what. It's because we have lost it. And the KK is telling us that, can you put your clock back and be the Zambia that he wanted? So without unity, my dear colleagues, the progress of Zambia is going to be slow. And all what we are going through as a nation, regardless of what efforts are being made to make Zambia a better place, our pace will be slow. I've said in other fora that Zambia should never appear on any list in the world of a poor country. Right. If we had taken Zambia from 1991 as a united front and exploited our resources as a unit without others thinking, no, the money should only, the people who can come and invest in Zambia should come from outside and leave the Zambians out. Today, Zambia will be a country where everybody is not only living in harmony, but they have peace in their homes and they are enjoying the fruits of what God gave us. We would be exploiting our potential together as a united front. Those who are economists will be telling us the importance of sitting in the middle of Africa. But then you hear an economist criticizing without offering solutions. No, we need a single-digit inflation. What does that mean to a Zambian person? But you can imagine if we came together, those of us who ask questions, my dear, you're an economist. Why don't you, how can we use the opportunity of Zambia being in the middle of Africa? How can we use Zambia as a transport hub? What can we build together so that Zambia can be an educational hub and it can bring economic activities? How can we use Zambia as a health hub so that we can have a health tourism? How can we use Zambia as an industrialized country that can take the economy out into the country? Because we can do literally everything in this country, but we are all fighting. No one must get into plot one. You know, God has prepared.
I just too on that.
Who will be in plot one?
On
It
that
doesn't
path.
matter how much you fight.
Yeah.
The person who will be in plot one, God has already.
I just want to squeeze in another question, Professor, with regards to the pace and also the legacy that's been given to us by KK. How best, because you mentioned in your prayer, say it is only a united country or nation that can develop at the end of the day. What would be your message to all the us that have remained today, as well as across board, in terms of maintaining the unity that KK left, just across board?
I think one of the first things that I would like, my advice to the young people is to read.
Right.
Let's have the culture of reading so that we know where we're at before 1964.
Right.
Whether we're born or not born, we must read. We must know how people were buying meat on a little window. We must read about how many times KK was imprisoned just to liberate Zambia. We must read about why Paul Mushindo never wore shoes. We must read about Julia Chikamoneka, the woman who was very critical in bringing the liberation struggle. And once we read and understand that they were doing it for us, then we will know that some of our behaviors must be dropped. Then we will also know that you cannot fight for that which you can't change. Play your part. Politics are just like a football game. You get into the football pitch, you play, and the best scorer gets in. Have you seen people fighting on a football pitch just to score? No, the best person scores. Those who are trying to fight and kick others, they remain. The scorer has gone with the football. So I think it's reading for me, and even maybe those of us who have opportunities, we need to start some kind of civic education amongst our young people. Because civic education, in my opinion, has dropped. And I know that at some point there was a lady called Lucy Sichone who lived all her life promoting civic education. I think that must come back. And in fact, my own suggestion to the children that have remained, KK's children, is that maybe in promoting his foundation, they may want to think about an institute that will be an educational institute, because that is the background of KK. Which,
and that should be named after KK.
Yes. And this foundation should be the one that now starts spearheading the education of our people, and even get some people to come and give state-of-the-art lectures on the importance of peace, the importance of unity, the importance of love. So some kind of thinking around that should be done. And there must be somewhere in this country where this remains. And there are certain things that should surround that thinking. One is the peace tree, where there is the symbol of peace of a tree.
Right.
And there should be something of in form of a bird, of a symbol of peace, such as, just have doves flying all over the place. So if I had an opportunity after we've all mourned and I sit with my brothers and sisters, that's one thing I would like to chat to them. We must do something. We cannot just lose sight of a man like this, who has impacted on everybody's life, not only here in Zambia, but in Southern Africa, the entire Africa, and the world over. And you can see on the messages that were pouring into Zambia when he died, that speaks volumes.
Right.
Because this is not the first time we have lost the head of state. Yeah, but you can see the kind of messages that were coming.
Yeah.
Well, there is a distinct difference between education today and education during the KK administration in terms of the structure of education. Post-colonial, those of us who happen to have been in education, we had secondary education, which took you to what they called Form 6. And also when you wrote your, what is called O-levels now, you wrote Cambridge. And in terms of hours that you spent in school, you spent a lot of hours in school. But also you had extramural activities. And it's the extramural activities modeled you around other things that made you explore your potential over and above just books. I can tell you that one of the things myself when I was in secondary school, I discovered is that I was a good dancer.
Right.
Yes, because, and therefore my hobbies were dancing.
Right.
And I won a lot of trophies all over in dancing. The other thing I explored that I had a lot of potential for is netball. In fact, even as a member of parliament, I actually continued playing netball. And our last visit to Zimbabwe, when the people, MPs from Zimbabwe came to Zambia, we won a trophy. We went to a return match in Zimbabwe, we won a trophy. So this made you explore over and above just the school subjects, other things that you can do. The third thing I discovered as a skill in is actually design and tailoring. So I used to make my own dresses, and I used to design them, and I used to tailor. And that's why I count myself as somebody who understands what I should wear at what time and how I should look. And for my stature, what am I supposed to wear? You know, a person like me cannot go around wearing a midi. I'm too short. I can only wear knee length or I can wear full length because of my stature. But these are things you discover if you are exposed to other things. So now when you look at education now is about books, 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 books. Now that in English is called being schooled and not being educated. Now I had an opportunity to be given by President Edgar Chabalungu to be head the Ministry of Higher Education. And my colleague Honorable Magumba. That's why we started a transformation agenda of the educational system, so that we transform it, so that our children go back to where we were, so that the children are being truly educated and they are critical thinkers. Okay? So that was the transformation that we started. Because being schooled is one thing, because you want to be a critical thinker. And also, being schooled is another thing, then you are not educated. And this is the path that for Zambia we would like to continue after the 12th August elections, that our transformation agenda for the education sector becomes a reality. And then we'll have a lot more people that are educated, that are interested in reading, that are interested in analyzing things, that are interested in measuring.
Professor, as we move on, I want you also, I know that we are already in an election period, and KK has died during this period of time. And I want to believe that before he died, he did witness some kind of seemingly divisions in the country and also the political violence. And you are here as a mother as well. I want you to give a lecture or to remind all the political leaders as well as the civil society organizations on how can we maintain this legacy of living in a country called One Zambia, One Nation ahead of the election.
I think that I had said earlier that one of the best ways to remember KK is for those of us who are in the political arena to take a step back and say, how best would I like to remember KK and his legacy? And I think one of the best ways we shall honor and respect KK is to actually live by his principles. Right. The principles of love. Because as soon as we exercise love for each other, you won't want to go and beat up another person and see blood, pouring out of your friend's eye or your friend's mouth and so on. So what I'd like to say to the young men and women who have agreed to be used as tools of violence is first of all to love themselves. Right. You start by loving yourself. Because if I love myself, I would not want to be used. Sure. 2, I would not like to be injured. 3, I would not like to love to end up in prison. And much more importantly, to die. For what? So it starts from the fact that you don't love yourself. So the love must first start with yourself. In fact, when I've said it to some forum that, you know, if there's anything I love, first and foremost is me, Nkandu. I just love myself. And I'm very proud of being Nkandu. Because that's what drives me. So people must start by loving themselves. That's one. The second thing is that you should ask a question. Me, I'm Mr. Luo's daughter. This person who is asking me to go on the street to fight, what about their children? So if they want any fight, they should take their children first to go and fight. Because that person is leaving their children, maybe not even living in Zambia, living abroad. Then they come to me, then they don't love me. Because if they should love me as they love themselves and as they love their children. In fact, that was one of God's commandments. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as you love yourselves. So anybody who leaves their home or picks a phone to ask somebody to go and cause injury to another person, they don't love that person. And everybody must reflect who is being used as a tool of violence, that whoever is sending them doesn't love them. Because how can I myself leave this house to go and fight on the street? I wouldn't. But I should send somebody's child to go and fight. The way I love myself and I'm not going to fight and be injured is the way I should love my friend's child. So this is the reflection the young people of Zambia should have on the adults that are sending them to go and fight. I've said when I visited the prisons, I shed a tear because of the many young people that are in prison. And most of them have been sent by adults to do whatever they are being tried for or they've been in prison for. And some of us adults, I can tell you, when we get to that day of judgment, I don't know how we are going to answer the charges. Thirdly, the responsibility of every child is the parents. Can each and every one of us parents account for our children? Now you can't even excuse yourself that I can't speak to my son because we have cell phones. So when you wake up in the morning, you should call your children and say, hello, where are you? What are you doing today? Yeah. In the evening, hello, what are you doing today? So that if your child does anything, you are aware. And if they are in politics, you remind them, Manawan, I know today you're going on the campaign, but can you do civil type of campaigns? Campaign with peace. Because these boys and girls, they're not the first politicians. We are not the first politicians. We are talking about KK. Yeah? What can we learn from their type of politics? Because they were even in a worse situation than we are. They were fighting colonial masters who were taking out all our resources and depriving the African. They could not access anything, even to buy food in their own country. They were buying through the window. They were taken to slavery and so on. But here we are just another party competing with another party we should be fighting. Does it make sense? It doesn't. And I think we need to reflect on that. And I think wherever KK is saying, I've left you, my children, in Zambia, and I'm not happy the way I've left you. But wherever he is, he's saying to God, can you put your hand on Zambia and put peace in that country?
I want us to conclude, Professor, but something that we can't ignore at this particular moment is as we speak or we talk about the peace message that was in the mind of KK among others. He went further, not only fighting for Zambia's independence, but he went further across the globe or across the continent of Africa and established the AU, African Union, which was formerly known as the Organization of African Union. Today we've got our member by the name of Emmanuel Mwamba, who is a representative of that organization. We feel so proud as a country. And for me, one aspect that comes out is to find out from you in terms of how realistic is the AU umbrella, which we have today, with regards to preaching peace. And that is the legacy that was set by KK. Are we likely to maintain that legacy left by our founding father?
Yeah, I listened to most of the messages that were pouring in, even the message from the AU. Again, you have to reflect on what is it that made KK and his colleagues form the AU. They formed the AU because they realized that you cannot fight an enemy as an individual.
Yeah.
That is one principle that I also didn't talk about, that KK did not live as an individual. He knew that you had to embrace everybody to work together. So that's why the AU was formed, and there are many other principles. Maybe in another interview we can talk about that. And secondly, because of the love, not only for us people in Zambia, the AU was important because there were many African countries that were not liberated. And the only way you could fight the rest of the countries that were colonized was to bring countries together. And there are countries that were liberated thereafter, long after Zambia was liberated, whose liberation happened because of the unity, because Africa became a united force, and therefore the colonialists had to start letting go some of the countries. So the AU has stood by that principle, and in the meetings, and I've had the pleasure to attend some of those in presidential delegations, I think they have created a unity even around particular issues. I can recall as Minister of Gender, we all rallied around the campaign against child marriage. It became an African issue instead of a country issue. I recall all of us, when I became Minister of Fisheries and Livestock, taking the issues of agriculture and making sure that we mechanize so that we can ensure food security for the continent. Because we have what it takes. We shouldn't be even sleeping hungry. So the AU now has gone beyond political unity only, but also to economic unity. We have to have economic liberation because we have the wealth of all types. We have the land, we have the water, and therefore these are some of the things that are being discussed in different fora. And I think when I think about food security, one of the best things that has happened is to bring the current president of the Africa Development Bank. Because when he stands to speak in the AU about agriculture and how we in Africa should actually diversify and do great things in agriculture, we see hope that sooner than later, if we unite around agriculture, we are going to be food secure, as both at household level and at regional level. So the unity in AU now is not just unity around politics, it's unity around the issues that will truly, truly liberate Africa so that Africa becomes secure. When you talk about health, through AU, we have now established centers of excellence. For Zambia, for example, is hosting this Africa CDC. This was all born out of the African Union. Because if we are going to fight infectious diseases, we must have the capacity to be able to diagnose those infectious diseases and also be able, at some point, to be producing our own drugs and other things. And we have the intellectuals who can do that. Why should Africa always remain dependent? So right now we are faced with the coronavirus. And because of having established the Africa CDC and also the Institute of Public Health, we are able to respond to some of the challenges of the coronavirus.
KK was actually among the last founding members or leaders of the AU that we are talking about today, meaning that all those people that were carrying that vision are no more as we speak. You know, are we likely to see, a crop of leaders that are going to rise and become or wear that hat of Africanism?
Well, for me, I would like to say it is possible, and they are there. But again, I was talking about how we Zambians should remember KK.
Right.
The same challenge goes to Southern Africa. The same challenge goes to Africa as a whole.
Right.
Because these people who led this did not only come from Zambia. We had Julius Nyerere of Tanzania. We had Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. And I'm sure the Ghanaians would also like to remember Kwame Nkrumah in a particular way. The Tanzanians would like to remember the Julius Nyerere. And I think the sum total of all of us can leave that legacy. And it doesn't need 100.
Right.
It just requires 3
powerful men and women.
Yes. And
I hope you'll be one of those.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I am one person who is very passionate about this, and as I keep saying, for me, I was not ready to see KK go because he was very healthy. And we used to tap a lot of wisdom from him. You needed to sit with him for just about 30 minutes, and you get to see, how much you can learn from a person like that. And I think we were still students, and so whatever we learned from him, I would be one of those people who would like to see that we continue with his legacy, especially the legacy of love, legacy of peace, legacy of unity, legacy for being man-centered, putting service before self, putting your friend there. If you have, make sure that person is comfortable first before yourself. Now, the selfish tendencies that we have now, where everything must come to me, my pocket, is really destroying our nation. And I think we need to continue on that trajectory of man-centered decisions.
I'll ask you my final question on behalf of course, the people of Zambia that are watching us, Professor. It's regarding KK stew. Government has decided to have or to send the body or the remains of KK across the country so that our colleagues in the rural areas or in Kanchivia, we talk about Petauke, whichever village you want to talk about, they should have that opportunity to pay their last respect. Yeah. And this move has been, received with mixed feelings by different people. Others feel that this move really will force us to go into spending more money or wasting money in an already, limping economy. Why do you think this move by government is important to send the board of KK in all the 10 provinces of Zambia? Still on the same.
Sometimes, again, as I said, it's always very important to reflect and to analyze. KK was not a Lusaka people's ownership.
Right.
KK was the first ever president of Zambia. KK transversed the whole of Zambia to liberate Zambia with his colleagues. KK was known in every corner of Zambia, and therefore everybody deserved to mourn KK. And it's very important for those who are criticizing to know that. Secondly, KK had a lot of people that worked with him who lost their lives to liberate this country. I would like every Zambian to tell me the cost of losing a life. Because when they talk about the cost of losing a life, then they can talk about whatever money they are talking about. And this is why I hope I'll have an opportunity to have an interview on humanism.
All right, sure.
And what the implication of losing humanism for our nation is. The man-centeredness is what we have lost. So we just think about ourselves. No, this can't happen, what shall we eat? Without looking at the implications of what is happening and what that means for this country. So if we mourned KK in Lusaka, some of the people don't even know KK who are in Lusaka. And in fact, some of them haven't continued, because when the president announced national mourning, what it meant that we should stop all the celebrations. That's what national mourning means.
Sure.
But others were having weddings, even amidst COVID. It was important for them to have a wedding when you are mourning your founding father. And everything continued as usual, business as usual, because they don't care. And that's why people can make statements like that. So, for me, I think this has given an opportunity for people in Southern Province who care, who understand what it means to lose KK, to have been given an opportunity to learn more.
Right.
And so were the people in Western Province, so were the people in Northwestern, people in Wapula, people in whatever. That is the founding father of this nation.
Right.
And liberation struggle was not easy. People should go to the archives and see what it meant to be taken to the prison. You are locked up with chains on your legs and on your hands. You are a prisoner, you are not a murderer. You have just spoken against a white man. Then they tie you with chains on the legs and on the hands. And then you have somebody whipping you behind. And you, who is reaping the fruits of somebody who sacrificed for you, should even make such a statement? Shame on whoever is saying that. Because really, Zambians, we should be grateful that Zambia is where it is today. And it's where it is today thanks to the men and women who sacrificed for us. In fact, my own view is that we have not thanked them enough.
Right.
That's my view. We have not thanked them enough. We need to thank these people. And we need space in our hearts, space in our nation to thank these people. Because I used to sit with my grandmother and she used to tell us what life was in colonial days. And you know, it's not a life anybody would want to ever think to live in.
You want to see Zambia, Professor, in the next 5 to 10 years? I know you've got a vision, just like KK had his own vision, was to see a united Zambia as well as united Africa and the world at large. What do we want to see Zambia in the next 5 to 10 years as we close?
Yeah, there are many things that I'd like to see Zambia like, but I'll probably leave them for another day because of the kind of interview that I'm having. So I'd like to respond in relation to the man we have lost. I'd like to see people much more connected, people loving each other, and peace get restored to our country. But on another forum, I can talk about other things the way I'd like to see Zambia.
Thank you so much. You can give your closing remarks with regard to how KK should be mourned.
Well, as a conclusion to this interview, I'd like to say to the people of Zambia, we have lost a great man. We have lost a man who sacrificed for us, and together with his team brought Zambia to where it is. And I think it's time for reflection for all of us to see how best, as we promote our national values and principles, to pick on some of the important values and principles that KK lived on and try and see how we can restore them in our nation, especially our young people. Zambia is what it is today because certain people sacrificed for you. What you see in Zambia did not happen by accident. So the whole spirit of love, unity, embracing others, listening to dissenting views becomes extremely important and give us every person in Zambia space to survive.
Thank you so much, Professor. Allow me once again to appreciate you for hosting us here at your residence. Not only that as well, but we appreciate you for having spoken to us to convey that message to the people of Zambia through Muvi TV. And we wish you the best in your political, journey. I know that you are the running mate, and we hope to see how you are going to achieve that agenda which you want to propel in your political career.
So thank you very much. And also I was very happy to receive you in my residence and especially give me an opportunity to actually speak about a great man.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor.
Dear viewers, we end our discussion here. My guest has been Professor Nkandu, presidential running mate to President Edgar Lungu. Remember, we were discussing or analyzing, submitting, reflecting on the legacy of Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, who died on the June 7th, 2021. Thank you so much for watching. To all the viewers within Zambia and the viewers across Africa, allow me to say, may God bless Zambia. May God bless Mother Africa. Good night.
What if you've had a few sneezes in 3 days?